Dad Rock presents the Ted Lasso AfterShow. This is Sean.
And this is Chris.
This week we are discussing Season 2, Episode 5, Rainbow. If you guys don't know by now, we are Dad Rock. We do the show each and every Friday night at 10 p.m. Eastern, discussing Ted Lasso. We've done other after shows as well, but right now we are actually in the middle of Ted Lasso, heading into... I think there's 12 episodes this season. Next episode will be episode 6. So heading into the Dark Forest portion of the season, right smack in the middle.
The dark. I know. Well, I don't know if anything about Ted Lasso is going to be dark and foresty, but
I don't know. We'll see. But yeah, this is quite the episode. What'd you think?
Dude, this was the first one I've watched back almost immediately, and then I watched it again just in bits and pieces because there was certain parts of the episode I actually got chills during. Mm-hmm. I was like, if a TV episode, a show can actually pull that off for me, it's gonna have me going back. And I've watched the part where I've got chills. I'll probably say about 3-4 times, maybe if not more. Just with doing pre-show for this stuff, then watching it in the morning, and it had me.
You sent me that text that you got chills, and I was like, chills? Does he mean like it was cringy, like it was bad chills, or he got like, oh, it was so
no? It's
bad.
Like when you see Undertaker come back for WrestleMania chills.
Oh yeah, the good kind of chills.
Yeah, those type things.
Yeah. I thought so too. I watched it. Normally, only have time to watch it once in the day, but made room and watched it twice. I watched it again before hopping on here with my wife, and she loved this episode too. It had a lot to do with romantic comedies.
Yeah, it did.
Kind of a theme throughout the entire episode.
I don't know. I'm always a sucker for them. I can't help it.
I know. Yeah, I know. I'm guilty of knowing a little too much about some of the references that they were bringing up too.
I had to. I knew the quote that we're going to talk about a little later, but I didn't know what movie it came from. Right. So I had to look that up myself. But yeah.
But as far as the episode, it's kind of centralized around Roy and Nate. Those who were the two characters who take up a vast majority of the episode, with kind of a sprinkling of Rebecca and a little bit of progression as far as what she's doing and dealing with in her romantic life with that banter app that Keeley was promoting. But let's just get into it. Let's talk about Roy. What happens with Roy this episode?
Dude, well, we start with Roy just kind of, he's still in his gig. He's still doing his thing. He's still doing, his pundit thing.
Yeah.
But he's actually, we see him at first, and he's sitting within his favorite kebab place.
Yeah.
And he's just sitting down, and it's funny because, Ted walks up behind him, starts talking, and he says, Keeley told me I was going to be visited by a mustachio, and it was some mustachio guy who was going to piss me off.
I know. He said, I thought it might be Wario. Did you hear?
Oh no, I didn't catch the Wario reference.
Yeah,
no,
Christina thought that was really funny. But yeah, he meets him in this kebab place, which I guess is ruined for Roy now. He can never go back. But Ted hasn't really seen Roy too much. They haven't really had a scene together in this season so far. Ted was kind of looking for him and leaving tickets at the window for him under country superstars names.
Yeah.
And Roy never took him up on it. But now Roy's in a different place. He's gotten a gig that he seems to like, and he's good at it. And Ted's asking him to he's asking for help basically.
Yeah,
Roy thought he was asking him to come back, but that's not quite it.
Yeah, no, you see the team struggling, and then you see Isacc McAdoo. He's the leader, and you see him yelling at players on the field when they give up that really light goal, and I guess they lost the game.
Yeah,
and they know that he's lost, and Dr. Sharon's like, should I talk to him? And he's like, no, we're going to figure this out. And he's like, who do we get to talk to in Alpha?
Right.
And this was, I thought, was kind of the first mean-hearted thing we've seen in the whole show of Ted Lasso. Nate speaks up like he's going to do it, and they all laugh at him.
Beard did not. Ted laughed at him.
Yeah, that was really the first mean-hearted thing we've seen, and I caught it immediately.
I laughed at it because Nate's not a alpha dog.
Yeah, it's funny, but I felt like it was out of character for Ted.
Well, he says as much. He was like, he apologizes immediately. He's like, that's sorry, sorry about that. He caught it too.
Yeah.
But Nate's going through his own stuff, and we'll get into Nate a little bit later. But yeah, Nate's got I don't know. And the story's not done with Nate. You and I started talking about Nate a few weeks ago as far as how he's been barking at the new what's the title called? A pit boy or
no, kick boy.
Kick boy, yeah. He's been really kind of barking orders at him and just not being generally very kind to him.
Not being the Nate we know.
Yeah, not the Nate we know for sure. So anyway, yeah, Ted gets with Roy at this kebab restaurant, and he's asking for Roy's help essentially to get McAdoo back, to where he could be, to bring the old captain in to talk to the new captain and try to get him up and going again. Oh, did I lose you?
Yeah, you lost. No, yeah, I'm confused. I lost me.
Oh, I thought maybe my network went out there for a second. I was like, oh no, come on. But yeah, so they're in the restaurant, and he kind of reluctantly, I guess, kind of agrees to it, because he tells they meet up later. Ted brings him out to this dark. This scene was so funny too. There's a lot of just like moments of just like really funny stuff.
Oh, okay, yeah. I'm sorry, I completely spaced on us. No, when he's talking about how he needs, he's there to ask him for a favor.
Yeah,
like I need you to come and talk to Isaac. He's all in his head, and so yeah. He actually agrees to go ahead and see him. Brings him out in this like dark like alleyway, and they text him, and it scares the crap out of both of them.
Yeah, it was so funny because he was lit up, from underneath, and he was real scary looking. He was giving that Roy Kent grimace, growl.
Roy is always kind of. Could you imagine running to Roy in a dark alley?
No. Yeah, it'd be rough. But they so this part was kind of like, whatever. It was this one was a little rote as far as, what do you do with the sports professional who's kind of lost interest or he's having a tough time? You go out and play the sport like you used to when you were a little kid. And this part was a little rote, but basically it did its job, because it showed Ted that Roy has a coach inside of him. That Roy has what it takes to inspire and to realize what his players would need, and there's potential there for Roy to be a great coach. And this got me thinking, and I'll bring it up with you, like, do you think Roy as head coach of Richmond is end game here? Do you think Ted will come in and do his magic and get them back to where they need to be as a team, and then like an angel, like Mary Poppins, just go away and Roy takes over the team? That's end of series stuff.
Yeah, that's like, that's way like.
Is it too soon? Yeah,
I don't know. Yeah, honestly, that's a good question, because Roy speaks the player's language,
right?
Ted doesn't. Ted actually, like we said, he speaks the language of like forming the family, getting them all to believe in each other. But when someone needs to be kicked in the ass, that's Roy's job,
right?
We won't see. What was his alter ego? Ted Lasso. Yeah, something. Yeah, we won't see him again because it won't be necessary.
Yeah,
but when they actually got him out there, and he's like, "Why am I playing out here?" And they get going. He's like, "You know what? Play with these guys and see what it takes." And I mean, we'll see Isacc here, regaining some of that, that fun and enjoyment that he had when, things were easier.
Yeah.
Gotta be kidding.
Yeah, that's the moment where it clicks in for Ted that his suspicions are basically confirmed as far as how it goes with Roy. Roy's ready to kind of step into that role if he wanted to. But what I did notice out of this scene too, I finally know Isaac's last name, McAdoo, because of the little McAdoodle do. And I'm like, that's what they do in this show. They give each of the players. That's why I don't know some of the players' names, because we just haven't had a little thing like to help us memorize it. Like with Jamie Tart, we had the little Jamie Tart song, Jamie Tart, and Roy Kent. You have the obvious Roy Kent song, which we hear later in this episode. Even with Danny Rojas, when the first scene that he's in, he comes in and he's running through the field, and his introduction is like Danny Rojas, Danny Rojas, Danny Rojas. He was saying his own name to ingrain it into the viewers' minds. But they finally did it for Isacc McAdoo. I love that now.
I mean, you're right. This is kind of standard stuff, the player, basketball player goes back to the streets and plays street ball. Essentially the same thing here with the soccer. But I loved it because we were getting, as a soccer football fan, we got some actual playing of the sport.
Mm-hmm.
There was a spot earlier where he actually hits it off his shoulder, which I'm even little I was like, I think that would have been a handball, but nevertheless. But there's that. Then when he's playing and they pass it across and he steps over the ball and lets it go past him, I loved it because I'm watching. I'm like, oh, that was freaking awesome. So I mean, that stuff right there spoke directly to me. So I had no problem with the cliche of what it was, and then watching Roy sit back, and going through it, and enjoying watching, Isaac regain the joy the same way in the same spot that he did.
Yeah.
And seeing that building in them. And then it was funny because after this is all said and done, they're walking away.
Mm-hmm.
Roy's like, I'm not falling for this.
Yeah.
And Ted's like, what? And then he starts going on and he breaks out a whole line. I'm like, I'm just a coach standing in front of a boy.
Yeah, exactly. From I knew Julia Roberts had said that. I forgot the name of the movie though. Was it Notting Hill?
Notting Hill, yeah.
Yeah. The one she was in with Hugh Grant. Yeah.
So I mean, he pulls that, and then when he says he's not coming back, this what I found was interesting. There was a sly little smile on Ted. Ted's like, I'm not buying it.
He's not totally convinced.
Yeah, no, I seen what you just did today. It didn't take a whole lot for me to get you out here to do it.
Right.
And you loved watching, Isaac do what he did and just have fun.
Yeah.
And now they're leaving, and he knows what Ted's doing. And Ted just kind of, stringing him along. He knows he's got him on the hook now.
Yeah.
How much longer before he gets him all the way back?
The relationship between Roy and Ted is so interesting because I think Ted had Roy pegged from the very beginning, as far as Ted knows Roy better than Roy knows himself almost.
Yeah.
Like when he assigned him that novel to read. I forget the name of the novel, but it's they turned it into the Disney movie here recently about the little girl having an adventure in space. And remember, he gave them all books to read as a gift.
Yeah.
And Roy was like, "I'm the little girl, aren't I?" And as he's reading it, he's like, "Ah."
He's reading it to Phoebe. He slams the book shut and he's like,
yeah. Yeah. He knew because I think Ted had him pegged. I think maybe Ted even knew that this guy had coach potential even back then because, Roy was a guy aging out of the sport at that time.
Well, he had to have because when he was having issues with Jamie, he went to Roy.
Right.
Roy was his bridge to Jamie to bring him along.
Yeah.
And then, that was undercut by, Rebecca selling him away or sending him back to Man City.
Yeah.
And then everyone thought it was Ted's decision when come to find out, and he finds out later that it really wasn't.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's how they leave this scene at this nighttime scene outside of this, smaller football court outside this apartment building that Roy grew up in. And that's kind of where they leave it. Roy's pretty adamant. Like, I know what you're doing. I'm not coming back to Richmond ever. And like you said, Ted kind of walks away, not really buying it. We don't think. But it's not until later that, Roy goes back to his day job now, commentating on live television.
Yeah.
He just has a breakdown, man.
well, they go through and they say, what do you think this kid's going to do? He's 17 years old. We have no idea. We're just going to sit here and guess. He's probably going to go home, and do have his
right.
Have fun. It's like, hold on, we're on TV here, buddy.
Yeah,
this is a family program. And then they show Richmond, and they show him warming up, and you see Isacc having fun, like taking the fun that he had out in the streets
and passing
bringing it
along it,
to
to
the
the other
team.
players. Yep.
And the handshakes and the warm up and just warming up differently and going over to Coach Lasso and doing the handshake. And,
Right.
Coach Beardo was just the hand behind the back handshake.
Yeah. He went over gentleman's handshake.
He went over to Nate and straightened his tie and ran away.
He apparently didn't get a handshake together with Nate earlier.
So, I mean, just him seeing that and you see it in his face and you're like, do you miss the cold? And he's like, I don't miss anything. I don't miss any of it. No. He said, I miss it all. I'm sorry. I misquoted that. I miss it all.
Yeah, he misses all of it. And he's like tearing up. Like he's like, all we sit here and judge, and we're not there. We're not in the locker room. We're not looking in their eyes and telling them how they can be better and uplifting them. And he has his own moment of clarity. He basically starts to see what Ted had seen in him this whole time. And the feeling is overwhelming. They start playing basically the title of this episode, Rainbow. It's a Rolling Stones song, She's a Rainbow.
Yeah.
Which we learn in another part of the episode is Higgins. That's the love song that Higgins and his wife it's their song. And they use it masterfully in this episode.
Oh man, it is edited. I mean, as an episode, I thought it was great. As whoever edited this together and put it together with the way the song goes, it was a masterpiece.
Yeah, it was good.
I mean, it had me sucked in. I mean, I went back and I listened to the She's a Rainbow outside of, just the show. It had me wanting to listen to more.
Right.
Because just hearing the song, I'm seeing the show go.
Yeah.
Which was, I mean, like I said, if they're going to nail it, I mean, they nailed that perfectly.
They did, and we get little drops of romantic comedy throughout the episode. Ted earlier when he's talking to the guys in the room when they're reviewing the game, they go into a whole diatribe about different romantic comedies. He believes that he's a communist, a rom-communist.
Yeah, I was like,
you just need to believe that everything's going to work out in the end, just like in any and every romantic comedy. And throughout this episode, it was so brilliant how they did this. They had little just these little references. Little nuggets of romantic comedy that didn't take you fully out. There was one with the older couple that was talking in the stands. I was like, well, that's Harry Met Sally. That's just a complete ripoff. They're looking right into the camera and telling us about their story. It's like, okay. It's so funny how this show can do those little things from here and there. Like Santa Claus last episode. Like, well, that kind of stretched the bounds of reality, but okay, I'll buy into it.
We'll go with it. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I thought it was funny when Roy finally decides he takes off his pack and everything. He leaves the studio. He's like, you know what? I got to go. I'm done.
Yeah.
And he's in that cab and it gets him as far as he can go. And he gets out of the cab and says, you can't date your wife. So he's quoting Nikki Sixx from the Motley Crue from the Behind the Music on VH1. That's what that would have been on.
Yeah, that's so funny. Well, this whole scene as they're playing the song, it's very reminiscent of the type of scene that would be at the end of a romantic comedy. Like the man has realized how much he loves the woman, even though they've separated. She's at the airport about to take off, and he's in a race to get to her in time to express his love. And his love is football, coming back to Richmond and doing what he needs to do. So he's like desperate to get back there in time. It's funny. It's funny and it was appropriate. Like it made sense.
Yeah, it didn't feel forced.
No,
I felt the way they started it with Roy, meeting him at his his falafel place, his kebab place.
Yeah.
And then, Roy helping Isacc and then seeing essentially the light bulb come on. Because we actually even glossed over this. Back at the kebab place, the owner came over and basically talked to him and almost set up the ending of this episode.
Right.
On how he's like, his father wanted him to do something, but he wanted to do something else.
Yeah.
And he decided to go the route of what he wanted to do. His passion is making kebabs.
Mm-hmm.
Roy's passion is football. And it's not talking about it. It's being involved with it.
Exactly, yeah.
So, I mean, I think the pundit part absolutely played it, its role because it got him back to the game. Yeah. Granted, it was a distance away from the game, but it was still, he was talking about it. People loved him. People were tweeting about him on Twitter.
Right, yeah. So, he was good at it, and it's something he could have done, but its real role in his life was to give him clarity and perspective.
Yeah.
it removed him in a way outside of football so he could understand that he was missing it, so he could find his way back in. It just played out beautifully. I mean, when he walks onto the field, I used it as the thumbnail, but it was a moment, man.
Oh, that's the part right there. When he adjusted his knee, he
Yeah.
walked out, and the Greyhound seen him first, and then everybody else started seeing him, and the place erupted.
Yeah.
And they're singing his song.
Right.
And all of a sudden you see Keely lean over, and she is you can see she's almost ready to cry.
She's wide-eyed. She's blown away.
Yeah, she is astonished that he's there, not knowing. She had no clue. I think she was completely in the dark of what he was. Well, I don't even think he knew. If you would have backed up 2 hours prior to that whole situation happen,
yeah,
I don't think he would have even known that he would have been on the sideline, with Beard and everything, and Lasso and Nate.
Right. Yeah, that's how it ends. I mean, well, we get like one more romantic comedy reference where Roy walks up to where the coaches are. Ted notices
him. Bear to lead. Let's go ahead and see it.
Yeah, let's do it.
Hello, Coach. Really glad you decided.
Shut up. Just shut up. You had me at coach.
Yeah. Nice.
Coach Beard. Oh man, we need more Coach Beard. Pre-shows like we need more Beard in our life.
Yeah, we do. That was like there's two things going on in that scene though, right? We see Roy taking his place, and everybody happy he's there. Ted, Beard is over. He seems to be overwhelmed. He's got tears in his eyes. But we see Nate's reaction, and Nate's is not so joyful.
Yeah, that's what I was saying earlier about the masterpiece on how this was edited. Because that's not. I thought when I first seen, because I'm not 100% familiar with that whole song.
Yeah.
Prior to today, because I mean, and now I've listened to it more than one occasion. But that portion where you hear like the violins and it's kind of like the strings, that's in the song. So they didn't add anything to the song. They just edited it to the point where they're focusing on Nate. Yeah. And that portion of the actual song is playing.
Where things are all out of tune and something's amiss. That's brilliant.
That blew my mind when I actually listened to Bags. Like, oh, they didn't do anything special to the music or change anything briefly for that, that moment where you can feel the conflict happening.
Yeah, and earlier in the song too, where Higgins' wife shows up, she's going to watch the game with them, and he's waiting for her in that big corridor there, and the song has a lyric about
blue.
Yeah, a lady wearing blue, and she's all decked out in blue, and Higgins and his wife and his family. That's like it's so funny. You don't see that too often. Just like a sweet, just couple that they're just married and they're just in love and they've been together for 30 years and they love each other as much as they did the first day they were married, and 5 kids, and just to be the kind of life that I think the rest of the characters are kind of like searching for in one form or fashion, especially with Rebecca, and Ted had his issues with his family, and they're all kind of struggling to find that kind of thing. So and we even have a scene earlier with Rebecca and Higgins to talk about that a little more. But yeah, I thought that scene and how they used the song was just incredible. It was good.
Yeah, I mean, between, I don't know, like I said, that whole, like, if we could, I'd play that whole scene from when the minute he walks on the field to Keely's reaction. The one thing I keep watching for some reason, and I don't know why I was watching this, but when Keely leans forward and she's in astonishment, I look at Rebecca.
Yeah, I did too.
I looked right at her. I looked past Keely after the first time I watched it.
Yeah.
And there was no response out of her. She was like stone-faced.
Right.
I don't know if that was just I
don't know if it's because the scene is so focused on Keely's reaction that Rebecca and the actress that plays Rebecca was just kind of taking, a step back. But But yeah, you do wonder anytime there's a big dynamic shift. When Jamie came back, in that one episode, Roy coming back to the team. I mean, you're curious because we're so invested in these characters. We're curious how every character is going to respond to that.
Or can we go as far as saying Ted has already keyed Rebecca into the possibility
maybe.
of coming on as a coach, because then he would be on payroll.
Yeah. During a biscuits with the boss meeting. You think?
Yeah. So, I mean, so she and Maeve already kind of been in the loop saying this may happen. So when he walked out and everyone went crazy and Keeley was, in astonishment, it just may not have astonished her as much just because she knew that the possibility was there of him returning.
Yeah, that is possible. Yeah. So before we got on here, you and I had a couple of things we wanted to bring up with each other. Does your thing that you wanted to bring up with me? We don't know what these things are,
we have no idea. It's gonna be new to you as new as to us. So
the thing that you wanted to bring up, is it in relation to the stuff that we've talked about already?
No, it is in relation to a prior episode.
Okay, I got you. We'll wait to bring it up then, I guess, later as we talk. I don't know. Should we start talking about Nate and his journey through this episode?
Yeah, let's get in a little bit of Nate here. Nate's conflicted. Nate's having a hard time.
Yeah. And he's finding himself. Like, Nate was always he was the kick boy. Like, literally, he was kicked around and bullied those first few episodes last
Jamie
season.
Didn't give him any leeway, and Jamie actually egged on the other guys that give him a hard time. So and it wasn't easy for him prior to Ted showing up.
Yeah, and one of the most heartwarming scenes of the first season is him being recognized and getting promoted to a coach, and everybody actually being happy for him. And it was great. Rebecca remembered his name.
Yeah, exactly.
He's taken his place, but I don't know if he still feels. I know he thinks he deserves it, but
you think he has maybe imposter syndrome? Like he doesn't feel like he belongs?
Yeah, there's probably a little bit of that. There's probably a little bit of just the trauma of people keeping him down for so long, where it's just hard to rise above that, even when things are good. So, there's a lot going on, and you and I kind of touched on it already, but like this season so far, he's being kind of really rude and mean to the new kick boy. And just there are parts where he snaps and he's aggressive. He's like all over the place.
Yeah,
he's kind of a mild sheep at some points, and then he gets way too aggressive at times. But they dive into that a little bit with this episode. The episode opens up with him walking up to this restaurant and seeing this table by the window. It's this, I guess, this Greek restaurant that his parents like to go to. And, now that he's kind of a big shot, he's earning some money. He'd like to take his parents out to dinner. He walks into this place because he's going to make reservations. And the hostess just like barely acknowledges him.
Barely acknowledges him is being nice. It's like he was there, and she was inconvenienced by him showing up.
Yeah, it was really, at first when I first watched this episode, I thought maybe she was just being rude, like maybe she's just a generally rude person. But then my wife brought it up the second time we watched this episode, and how she kind of like denied him and his family being there in front and center in the window. I didn't know if there was like some undertones of racism that they just didn't like. They didn't want the Brown family sitting, in front and center in the main window outside the street. There might be a little bit of that. Just because I can't fathom, like, why the heck wouldn't she just let them sit there?
Why can't I reserve that table?
Right. Yeah. She just seemed to deny them that for no reason whatsoever, and then just put them in a corner. Like, you guys go sit in the corner. It was really kind of strange and off. Yeah. The more it kind of glossed over me the first time I watched it, because I thought maybe she was just being rude in general.
I didn't even that didn't even like enter my conscious of that possibly being a reason. And I honestly I can see that. Yeah. Based on if they're playing on like current what's happening now as well. I mean, definitely after what just happened in England with the England team and the 3 players that missed the shots, and they're just the names that are on Sudeikis' shirt, the black shirt that he wears around. That can, since he's a writer and a producer on the show, that can absolutely be something that he was kind of hinting at without needing to really dive deep into it.
Yeah, and it's you and I come from an American perspective. It's a part of our country over here, but we don't take ownership of it. Like it's a problem worldwide. London too. So I'd imagine there may be undertones of that. But regardless, whether it was racism or not, this hostess was just rude AF.
Yeah. Yes, she was too.
Yeah. But he didn't assert himself, right? Like he just he accepted
Mild
it.
spoke, and he was like, okay, and then just kind of went away.
Yeah. And there was just moments throughout this episode, like with the coffee things, like Keely, through her marketing role, she got it was so funny because this was definitely like, a promotion, like Nescafe is like a real brand, right? So for
Product
them
placement.
yeah, it was product placement. And Ted Lasso, like she had the stack of these things and she was just giving them away to the players.
Well, then she was also like, make sure you do your Snapchats or your Instagrams,
Right.
or she was like, make sure you do all this for us.
But like little things. So like Nate came up and he was like excited, like, oh, I'll take one of these. And he was denied because, it's only for the players. And like the scene we mentioned earlier where Nate said, I'll be the one to talk to, Isaiah, and Ted laughed at him. And just like these little moments where Nate's kind of being kept down, and you really kind of get into his psyche as far as just being like, boy, he's just not in a real great place right now. And he's denied at this restaurant. So he goes and asks Keely for help, luckily. And even
Everyone
doing that
goes to Keely. I mean, she must be a magnet for like, messed up people.
Maybe. Yeah. I didn't notice that. But yeah, that's where Jamie went too last time. Her office is becoming almost like, it's so funny. We have an actual therapist and psychologist in the season of the show. And I've barely seen her. She just kind of shows up here and there, and she's like, "You doing all right?" Like she was barely in this episode again. The last 2 episodes, I thought maybe with being the new character in the season, she would have more of a presence.
I mean, there was an interaction between her and Ted. The whole under pressure thing, which I think there's going to be a glass breaks moment, just like the the panic attack.
Yeah,
and I mean we're going to be 6 episodes in. I think if it's going to happen, it's got to happen soon.
Yeah,
so her character can help pull him out of that funk. Because when it was back when we were talking about McAdoo and everything in the warm-ups, the announcers were talking about how they were almost on the verge of being relegated a second time. Yeah. And they can't afford to be relegated a second time because that won't lead to the progression I'm thinking. Now, they may have a whole other thing. Mine is just 100% guess.
Yeah.
So, I mean, if they go ahead and they do that, it's going to hurt. But yeah, if he does that happen and then she pulls him out of it, that's the best case scenario. Yeah,
for sure. So, as far as, Nate goes, Keely understands what he's talking about right away. He basically, he comes in, he's like, "Can you make me famous?" And she's just like astonished by like, "What do you even mean? Like, you don't want to be famous. Like you are perfect the way you are. Don't, because she's had a taste of fame. Yeah. She knows what it's like to be famous, and she doesn't want any part of that anymore. But she sees what the issue is. Once he mentions to her what he wants, he just wants a table at this restaurant. He can't seem to get it.
And Rebecca was like, she was going to go ahead and get him any table he wanted.
At the Dorsey, like all these fancy restaurants. She was just like name dropping, and Rebecca couldn't believe that he couldn't get this, table at this little, Greek restaurant that he wanted to bring his parents to. So Keely and Rebecca team up to try to give Nate some assertiveness. And it kind of worked, I guess.
I don't know. They pretty much told him to grow a pair.
Yeah, in a nice way, in a friendly way.
Rebecca's like scary monster.
Yeah, I was going to bring that up. Rebecca gave her little secret how she feels powerful, and because you and I had talked about this, how the actress who plays Rebecca and Rebecca herself, she has a presence when she walks into a room. And Nate says as much, right? But it's like she also gives I walk into a room with these football club executives who treat me like I'm a schoolgirl or whatever. Yeah, like you're like, oh yeah. I mean, Rebecca's not immune to that kind of thing either. So they gave you some real perspective there, and it kind of opened Nate up for her to listen, or for him to listen to the advice. But he does that later, right?
Yes,
he takes the advice as far as take a moment for yourself, kind of feel your own inner power kind of thing, and go back out there. He goes back to the restaurant, and he's with his parents. He brings his parents in tow. The same hostess is going to shove them back into this corner table, and he's had enough. He excuses himself to the bathroom. He spits in the mirror, which I thought was kind of strange.
Well, he does the whole like monster thing first, and then realizes that's not going to work. And he gets mad and he's like, this, like I said, this spits the mirror. Which
like
nowadays I'm
spits in his
thinking,
own face.
No, don't do that.
Yeah.
And,
Can you at least clean that up before you leave?
you get the squeegee out.
Yeah.
And you can see him all of a sudden pumped up. He's like, you know what? I'm not having it anymore. He walks out to there. He tells his parents to hold on. He goes to the the actual podium. He talks to her and said, that table's mine. Pretty much. He's like, you know what?
A different person.
Yeah. He's like, you know what? Okay, that table wasn't open for reservations. There's nobody sitting at it now. We're here. I want that table. We're going to have 3 courses and we'll be out of here.
Yeah.
And she's like, and she can tell, she's like, you know what? She takes it. He's like, you know what? You came at me like, that's my table.
Yeah. Which he should have just let him reserve it from the get-go. But she finally relents, and then he asks her for a date and she denies him.
You know what? That probably would not have been a attempt he wouldn't have made. He would have made 2 hours before that.
True. Yeah.
So he took that extra step, just kind of, you know what? I'm going to do it.
While I'm at it, I seem to be on a roll, so I'm, might as well.
Yeah, right. Why not? You can't hurt.
But Nate got to win. He got to win. The thing that he wanted. You can tell the relationship already in this few scenes that we have. The relationship that he has with his parents, his father especially, is just kind of like.
His dad still wasn't even impressed with the window seat.
No, barely, right? But Nate still claimed it as a win. He was able to get something done that he wanted to get done, and he did it in front of his father and his mom. So with that new attitude, like he goes back to the club, they're playing. What is the name of the team? Something Wednesday on Saturday.
Yeah. The owl, something owls or something like that. I don't know. Yes.
Oh, I'm glad you brought that up. We finally got the rest of that joke from season 1 that we never heard of.
Oh, what does the British owl say? Boom, boom.
Worth it.
I like how Beer was like, I'm glad you finished it. He liked it. I like it.
Yeah. Us as viewers, we waited a whole season to hear what the heck the rest of that joke was.
I forgot it was a throwback. I literally forgot it was a throwback.
That was the joke he was trying to tell Beard and Nate when they were like running away from him, when they were mad at him because he didn't want to bench Roy, so they were giving the cold shoulder.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was a funny.
Oh, there we go.
Sheffield Wednesday. Thank you. I couldn't remember it. I learned something. Sheffield Wednesday was a club that used to only play on Wednesdays, but now they can play any day of the week. And they were playing them on Saturday. And Nate comes back and he's sharply dressed, right? He's dressed to the nines. He's looking great. He's feeling confident. Ted is like, hey, there's my man, giving him props.
Yeah.
And we finally catch up to the scene that, we saw earlier where Roy comes back. And Nate is just like, you can tell Nate is upset by this new circumstance. Like it's almost as though he lifted himself up with his confidence, and now he took a hit because I don't think he knows what this means for his place in the relationship between the 3 coaches. Like, what's his role going to be?
Diamond Dogs.
Exactly, yeah. Which is left unanswered. So we had a lot of Nate in this episode, which I appreciate because I think there's been not enough Nate up to this point. And not enough Roy, too. So this was good. This episode really kind of caught us up with some of the characters we've been missing out on so far.
Yeah, no, this episode was fantastic.
Yeah.
Like I said, I loved like every minute of watching this one here. I would maybe disagree a little bit with the Nate stuff. I thought it was too heavy Nate. I didn't think we needed that much. I mean, that was the parts of the show where I would skip over.
Okay.
I mean, I'd watch some of it and then I'd skip some.
Yeah.
Like it would just, I mean, I don't know if I'm just not feeling the character so much or I'm not liking the turn the character's making. I mean, that could be it too. The whole like aggressiveness type character. Maybe I like him more of as a meager type character. I don't know. It's hard telling. I mean, there's gonna be a lot more to come. His story is nowhere near over.
I think that's why I ended up liking it. If this was just a one and done where he was not assertive and then he learned to be assertive and that was it, I'd be like, I mean, and that's just too easy, But the fact that he was brought up a peg and then immediately by the end of the episode was brought down again with another instance of like, him not being sure of himself anymore, means that this was just a step in the road for me. Like this was just a smaller portion of a larger story when it comes to Nate. There's more to see. So I did appreciate that, at least. This is just a portion of the story.
Yeah, no, okay. I mean, that's good. Okay, so I mean, that's pretty much essentially the episode. If I'm not, so let's get into what we were talking about a little bit. We both have something to talk about. Neither of us know exactly what it is. So you want to lead with yours? Or you want me to lead with mine?
You go ahead with yours.
Okay, so let's go to last episode.
Mm-hmm.
No, it's back 2 now, because their last episode was a Christmas episode.
So before Christmas.
So the one prior to that, where we had Sam making the move, the tape over the jersey,
yes,
the whole thing. What was it? The name of the airline was
Dubai Air.
Dubai Air. Thank you.
Yeah.
So we had Dubai Air, and we knew we're going back and forth talking about is this an actual? Is this good for them to go ahead and approach? Mm-hmm. And I remember your biggest concern was they're going to address it and then sweep it under the carpet and move on.
Right.
My thought was it's not uncommon for teams to change sponsors, but more so after this season where they get a brand new, uniform. They call them kits, the whole deal. And I noticed something in this episode at the end of the episode, which led right into what you were fearing.
Oh, really?
Yes. So you look all over. I mean, I've got a screenshot where you can barely see the front of the uniform because they really weren't giving away the uniform. It was all over the stadium. And even in our clip, at the very end of the clip, where you see the players sitting on the seats, you'll see it as well. Dubai Air isn't the sponsor of the team anymore.
Really? Okay.
I'm gonna pull us up here. And if you look right down here,
that's a new logo for sure. Yeah.
It says Banter.
Oh.
So all over the stadium, you see Banter, and now Banter is the main sponsor of AFC Richmond.
Oh, I see. Okay.
So your concern of them just sweeping it under the rug and moving on, it kind of came to fruition. They made this big statement in this episode, and instead of possibly alienating some of their viewers because they don't want them to harp on something like this, they make the statement and then they change sponsors on the team, because there's a good distance between when that happened and where we are now, because the holidays and everything happened, and then now they have a new sponsor to the team. Banter's all over the stadium. It's behind where the players sit. It's now on here. So I mean, how big has Banter actually become? Because it was when that's something that Keeley launched. Yeah.
Or at least you had a direct tie-in early with them to help promote Banter.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting. I'll reserve judgment until I see the rest of the season, how that plays out, if they address it. If they end up not addressing it, I think that kind of would be a small failure for the season, because I think that storyline was just too important. That episode had too many heavy things to just kind of have it wrapped up in a tiny bow, that one episode, and just move on from there. I thought it should have had longer lasting repercussions than that.
Yeah, and I thought they were going to play it out throughout the rest of the season, where we would see, Dubai threaten to pull their actual sponsorship and then pull it. Right. And then all of a sudden the internal turmoil with Rebecca and Higgins and Lasso and everyone trying to figure out, okay, where are we going to get the sponsor from? Who is going to sponsor this team now that isn't a Premier League team? How that's what I was looking forward to seeing. Now, granted, the tones of the show doesn't fit that, because it's not really a conflict. That'd have been a huge conflict, and they've kind of they've limited the amount of conflict on the show on purpose. I mean, it's a very lighthearted show, and it's very obvious on what kind of tone they want for the show.
Right.
That would have been difficult for them to continue with that type storyline, which, in my opinion, then they should never even have approached it.
Yeah, and the real drama of the show so far has been really kind of interpersonal drama. Character-driven drama, relationships in between characters, internalized drama, what people are going through, Ted's issue with his divorce, things of that nature, where outside forces like relegation and sponsorship and stuff has been kind of taken a back seat to a lot of that stuff. So I can see, I guess, why they decided not to pull that thread further as far as losing Dubai Air as a sponsor, but if they don't address it, it would be kind of disappointing. But you know, here's what it is. Still a great show.
Yeah, no, I agree. I just when I was watching it, I didn't catch it the first time through. I watched that like last like 10 minutes, and I think I watched that the most.
Yeah,
And then all of a sudden, like a light bulb kicked on. I'm seeing banter everywhere in the stadium, and then because with Isaac's jersey there, that's a boom boom clip.
right.
That's him, you know, happy that that Roy's back. He's like, he smiles, starts clapping his hands, he's bouncing. And that's when my eye caught it. So if you're not looking for it, you're not actually gonna see it.
Yeah. Well, it's funny that you bring up something like that around banter, because the thing that I have is also banter related.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
So throughout the episode, we get sprinklings of Rebecca using banter to talk to some anonymous guy. You know, that's the whole thing with banter. It's that it's a dating / social media kind of site where there's no pictures. You're just basically texting people to find out more about them, who they are, maybe set up a date if you want to. And it takes the, you know, how people look out of the equation, you know, immediately. That's kind of the whole premise of banter as an app. So, you know, the whole team's been using it. Rebecca, who's, you know, struggling to find the one or decide how she wants to evolve her love life going forward, you know, coming through her own divorce. We find out this episode, she talks to Keely. She's been talking to this mystery man who's very romantic, and she's kind of been swept off her feet. And after a conversation that Rebecca has with Higgins and how sweetly he talks about his wife and the relationship they have, she feels comfortable enough to be honest with this mystery man on you know, this app, where I'm on here trying to find love, I suppose, is what she says. And she keeps talking to this guy. There's a scene after which where Keely and Rebecca are sitting at the game. They're in the stands.
Okay, yeah.
And, you know, Rebecca sees something or laughs, responds to something funny. I guess she's still talking to this guy afterwards. And she shows Keely, and Keely smiles, right? Having a bit of a moment together. And right after that, immediately we snap to Ted walking down the hall on his phone.
Oh,
laughing at something. Immediately. I didn't catch this the first time around, but the second watch, I'm like, they go right from that scene and cut to Ted walking down the hallway. That's at the same seat where he's going to the game too, and he gets stopped by, you know, Sharon, and he sees Nate in his suit and walks by. Ted was looking at his phone and laughing, kind of like amused with himself by what he just did on his phone.
Oh, that's a good catch. I didn't even put two and two together. And know what? Did I not bring that up last week?
You did. Yeah.
I brought that up that that may be an avenue they go, because they're always together.
We talked about this. You brought it up. You were like, what do you think? Is Ted and Rebecca being together endgame? And I was just like, man, I don't know. I don't really want to see that, because they're doing so good at building a relationship that's a friendship, at a trust. And I just don't, you know, I don't want it to go there. I feel it would ruin the show. But I feel strongly that that's the whole thing with this app, is that you don't see pictures of people. You just get to know them for who they are.
Man, you know,
I think they're gonna run into it and find out.
There's gonna be something that's gonna happen when they agree to meet at the bar.
Yeah.
At that local pub where they always go to, and one's gonna be sitting there and one's gonna be shocked that one's there, and they're gonna start talking, and we're gonna realize that they're both gonna think they're stood up.
Yeah.
And then they come to a realization that it's them.
I don't know where it's gonna go. It may just be a one episode thing where they have just kind of a goofy, kind of a silly meetup where they're like, oh, it was you the whole time. Oh, it was you. And they kind of laugh it off like, oh, ha ha ha.
Or they can go the full cheesy route of it, and they can they can go, you know, was it Pacey and whatever her name was from Dawson's Creek?
Just name it, you know, Ross and Rachel, any TV show, like, and they won't they, Sam and Diane, like. And I don't know if I want to see that.
I'm not for that right now. Now, I like I said, I don't want to be right in this.
Yeah.
We're going to have what's going to be really telling is we're going to have the next glass breaking moment for Ted. Mm-hmm. When's it going to happen?
Yeah.
I mean, Rebecca has always been there for him from day one. She was there for him,
Right.
Even if at the very beginning it wasn't genuine, it became genuine. Like he's showing up with biscuits for the balls or with the balls,
Right.
and as that's going, and then he's helping her through the whole the pub scene with darts. Meeting her friend, and we don't know the dynamic of what she's thinking when he's with Sassy.
Yeah.
So, yeah, man, no, I'm not shipping it.
Yeah, I'm not shipping that either. So I don't know. Jury's out.
It's not, honestly, I don't think it'll ruin the show for me.
Okay.
It depends on how heavy they lean into it. If they kind of keep Ted and being forefront with the team and everything that's secondary, even Keely's relationship to Roy is kind of on the back burner compared to what's really going on with Roy being in the forefront. Keely has her own scenes. A lot of her scenes aren't with Roy.
Oh yeah.
So if they did it in that manner and it wasn't like force fed to us, and it's something that maybe developed over the end of the season, maybe into next season, one of those cliche cliffhangers. Didn't they?
Right.
They both wake up and they show them in like.
I don't know. Look, there's any number of ways that this could go. Oh, I did disappear. Dang it. Or did you disappear? Who disappeared? Is it me? Am I still live? Let's see. Or did Chris disappear? If y'all are still out there, message me or post a comment so I can see it. Chris froze. You're live. Oh, Chris froze. Oh, I'm always the one that freezes. So I'm sitting here like, oh, man. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and end the show then. Oh, that's a shame. Poor Chris. Just in case you guys don't know, we are Dad and Rock. We do an after show each and every Friday night at 10 p.m. for Ted Lasso. And, yeah, we do all kinds of stuff. Visit dadandrock.com for more. You can always find out exactly what we're doing. We do have a podcast. We do all kinds of stuff. But that's going to be it. We're Dad and Rock. Check out dadandrock.com. Like and subscribe to the YouTube page. And we will see you guys next week.